We're facing yet another government shutdown, and if you have questions, then look no further. We're going to talk about how this impacts the economy, your pay, retirement services, and a whole lot more. And my hope is that this will provide clarity to your situation too. So let's jump right in. The first big one that we have is, how long will the government shutdown last? If you've been a Fed long enough, then you've lived through quite a few of these. It's hard to know how long a shutdown will truly last. The last one that we had in 2018 to 2019 was just over 30 days. The spending bills have to be agreed upon by Congress by October 1st, which at the time of this video is this weekend. If they can't come to agreement, the funding runs out and the shutdown begins. Earlier this week, the House had passed 1 out of 12 bills, and the Senate hadn't passed any. With a divided House and Senate, the prospect of getting this done in time is slim. All right, another big one that we get is what happens to our paychecks. Furloughed employees and those that are deemed essential and will be working through this will not be paid. And folks, this is one of the many reasons that we talk about the importance of having an emergency fund. The appropriate number varies from family to family, but a good starting point is to consider somewhere around 3 months worth of your living expenses. And you want to have this in cash or cash equivalents. And the reason is, you don't want to subject it to market risk in the event that you need it in the very short term. Does that mean that the shutdown is expected to last that long? No, not at all. But you might have other emergencies that could come up during the same time period. Now, if you don't already have an emergency fund, then you can consider using non-retirement investments as a backup plan for emergencies. Just be careful with how capital gains can come into play with that. And once the shutdown is over, I encourage you to start building that emergency savings for yourself. Now, the good news is you will eventually be paid. In 2019, there was a law passed that automates the back pay process. And bonuses are similar. Agencies are still allowed to award bonuses, although they won't be paid until after the shutdown. All right, the next one. Oh, this one will be good. Do members of Congress still get paid during a shutdown? The answer is yes. By law, they do receive their full paycheck during a shutdown, but many of their staff members and other support people do not if there aren't appropriations for those activities. Now, I know how this sounds, but I'm only here to talk about the facts. So I encourage everyone to use the comment section below to engage in conversation. Just make sure to keep it civil. Okay, another one that we get often is, what happens to our health insurance coverage? What if I need health care? And folks, this is one that you don't have to worry about. Furloughed feds will still maintain their coverage under FEHB. The premiums are still going to accrue regularly, and then they'll be taken out of your first paycheck after the shutdown is over. And the same is true for dental, for vision, or if you're on Medicare or TRICARE as well. And if this has been helpful so far, consider sharing this with one of your other colleagues at work, because maybe this will help them too. Okay, the next one, and this is one everyone wants to know: what happens to the economy? Generally speaking, a shutdown that lasts a couple of weeks is not really going to impact the economy. Now, if we see the shutdown last for about a month or more, that's when we start to see it show up in economic data, like we did the last time. If it's longer than a month, then it could be problematic because we're compounding this on top of the inflation issues that we've been dealing with. So we tell folks, it doesn't hurt to take another look at your portfolio to make sure you're properly invested. You want to get ahead of these issues before they become a problem. If you determine you might need some cash for an upcoming home purchase or something like that, maybe now you want to start thinking about whether you want to go ahead and sell some investments and generate the cash that you'll need. But again, you want to check with your advisors on this and make sure it fits within your plan. The next question, what if I'm retired? Will my pension payments go away? And this is another one that you don't need to worry about. CSRS or FERS annuitants, also known as retirees, will still receive their normally scheduled payments during the shutdown. And the same thing is true for Social Security. These are considered mandatory spending that are not funded through appropriations. And like I said, Medicare is also in this category. And the next one, should I wait to submit my retirement application? And the answer is possibly, but hard to say. You can still submit your retirement application, especially if you were planning on retiring this year, but it may not be processed as fast as it usually is. OPM's retirement services are still going to continue working through this, but the challenge is that your agency has to process the paperwork before it gets there. And so agency staff may not be available to actually handle that for you. Another one that we get is what departments will be affected. And this one's a bit tricky because it depends on whether you fall under exempt or if you are furloughed or accepted. Exempt employees are financed through funding other than the annual appropriations. As a result, they're not impacted by the lapse, and about a third of the federal workforce makes up this section. Now, furloughed and accepted employees are those who are paid by annual appropriations. And the agency will tell you whether you are required to come in and do work or not, despite not having enough funds for either one. So furloughed employees would not work, while accepted employees would. Each agency is required to have their own contingency plan, but a lot of plans were still being updated this week, and our friends at the Federal News Network have a pretty good article that has a chart on departmental figures, and I'll have the team put a link to their article in the description of the video. The next one we have here is, can I use my leave for unpaid furlough? This one's a little interesting, and the answer is no in most cases. Now, it's a bit tricky because it depends on the status. Furloughed employees cannot take leave during the shutdown, and anything that was scheduled prior is going to be canceled. Now, if you're accepted, there are a couple of ways around this, but that's beyond the scope of this video. And folks, OPM has a PDF on a lot more details about shutdown information, and we're going to put the link to that in the show notes below, as well as the Federal News Network article, and I encourage you to check those both out. So I hope this was helpful, and I encourage you to use the comments box below, ask questions, offer thoughts, opinions. We want to develop a community that you guys can have a conversation and help one another grow together. Until next time, stay wise and stay wealthy.